Hey, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about dental hygiene, the National Board exam. Dun dun dun. So how do you get your license as a dental hygienist? Well, you take 2 years of schooling minimum, 4 years if you're doing a BS, and you work your butt off, and then you have 3 exams you got to take in order to become licensed. The first one is the National Board exam, which we're going to be talking about today. The second is a clinical exam, and then finally you take a state exam from wherever you're going to be working. So the National Board exam is 350 multiple choice questions that are split up into 2 groups. The first one is going to be 200 questions. Gotta look at my notes here. In component A, which are split up into scientific basis for dental hygiene practice, provision of clinical dental hygiene services, and community health/research principles. The other 150 questions are in component B, and those are going to be case studies, usually 12 to 15 case studies, where they will give you a patient with health problems and whatever, and then they'll ask you questions about that patient and what kind of care they should receive. So what kind of questions will you see on the exam? There are 5 types of questions, and they all have multiple choice answers, and you have to pick the best answer. And personally, I hate that kind of test. I'd rather have like a super obvious best answer. This is kind of a what do you think they think is the best answer, and that can make it a little harder. I tend to psych myself out on those. So just be aware that it's going to be multiple right answers. You're just going to know which one is the best answer. So the case studies. The case studies will include patient information, radiographs, charting. They'll have information for you like it was a real patient, and then you're gonna have to sit there and decide what you would do with them. So a passing grade for this exam is considered 75 correctly answered questions or more. And you're gonna get a pass if you pass, and you're gonna get the number of questions you got correct if you didn't pass. So they won't tell you, you know, like you got 300 out of 350, congratulations. They'll just give you a pass, which again, I'd kind of like to know what I missed. So that I found frustrating from what I remember, but that was 12 years ago, so you know, that was a while. Results for the board show up 3 to 5 weeks after you've taken the exam. So you're gonna have a long time to panic about how you did, which isn't fun, but just take a deep breath. You'll find out soon enough. To take the National Board exam is $440. So make sure you pass it on the first try, because if you don't, you gotta shell that out again. And that's not fun. Clinical boards are really expensive, and then you got your state boards to pay, and then you get your licensing fee to pay. So you're gonna be cranking out a lot of money over the next couple of months. So if you are like me, you're gonna have to pay for it through your student loans. If your parents are super rich, maybe you don't have to. But just be aware that it's gonna be pretty pricey to take all this stuff. Okay, judgment day. What can you expect as far as scheduling for the test? Your first 3.5 hours to cover those 200 questions. You have an optional 15-minute break between 100 questions. So my class opted for the 15-minute break. So we do 100 questions, take a 15-minute break, do 100 questions, take a half-hour break, and then you start in your afternoon stuff. So session 2 was 4 hours. You had optional 15-minute breaks between each 75 questions, and then at the end, the whole thing takes about 9 hours. They schedule about 9 hours for it. So my class, I remember we did do the breaks in between. If you're done early, you're not allowed to leave. You do sit there. I just doodled because I did tend to finish a little early. But just expect a really long day. Brace yourself, get good night's sleep the night before, and then go in and do it. And again, if you get done early, sit there quietly, make sure you don't look at anybody else. Again, just doodle on your desk or write a novel or something, but don't look at anybody. Okay, let's say the worst happens and for some reason you fail. You're not gonna fail, but let's just say you fail. You have to wait 90 days in order to retake the test. After your 3rd attempt at the test, if you're still failing, they make you wait a year. So get it on the first try, right? Study. Okay, so how to study for the Dental Hygiene National Boards. Learn your stuff when you're in school. You know, pay attention in class, pay attention on clinic, learn your stuff. when you get to this test, it really should be just a review. If you've got good teachers, good school, and you've done your homework, you should know what you're doing by the time you get to this test. Okay, so the two books I used to review were the Mosby's Comprehensive Review of Dental Hygiene, edition 6. I just looked, edition 7 is out, so you will be using edition 7. This is a phenomenal book. I will tell you a funny story about this later. But this goes through everything. And then there's tests in the back, and there's an index, and there's a, like, it's all in here. So this oral pathology with pictures, and it's all here. So get this book. Most of this is gonna be in your head already. It's amazing what 2 years can do. But I would definitely recommend this one. This is how I passed my boards. The other book I used was, I think it's heavy, The Complete Review of Dental Hygiene. Also a fabulous book. This one is pretty much all tests. So asks a question, gives you answers, and then at the very end you can go and check your answers to see if you actually know what you're doing. But this is all review questions. Go through these, you know, see if you know your stuff. But definitely do as many practice tests and stuff as you can. There are apps you can get. There are board games you can get. There are online reviews. There's even a girl here on YouTube that is a tutor and has her own review for the boards. So there's all kinds of stuff out there for you as far as what you could use to study. I used a whiteboard and, you know, these guys. And I would just mark the answers and I just memorize them. But I'm really good at memorization, so multiple choice is my favorite. That was always good for me. A lot of people don't like that, but for me it worked really well. So tips for when taking the test: on those breaks between questions, those like first 100 questions, you get that 15-minute break. Don't find the people in your class that got the same version you did and compare notes. You will freak yourself out. I remember doing that, and well, I didn't start it. Other girls were like, oh, you had version 3? What did you put for this? Oh no, that means I got it wrong. And they were talking really loudly in the hallway, and it really psychs you out because you go, shoot, I missed that one. Oh, I missed that one too. And you start like really starting to doubt yourself. You may have walked out of there, you know, you finished early, you thought you knew most of them, and then you walk out in the hallway and you go, oh crumb, maybe I missed a lot more than I thought I did. Start getting really depressed and you start getting really nervous about what you really do know. Then you have to go back in and do another 100 questions. So don't do that to yourself. If they're gonna do it, fine. If your classmates do it, fine. Get yourself some noise canceling headphones and then just ignore everybody, because you need to be in your own head and you don't need to be hearing that stuff. When it's all over, sure, if you wanna know what people thought about question 15, go ahead and ask them. But don't do it during the test. Relax beforehand, get yourself a massage, go for a walk, definitely get a good night's sleep. Do not be relying on things like Red Bull, please. Just, you know, take good care of yourself so when you walk in, you're fresh, you're not exhausted, you didn't study your brains out all night long. Don't do any cramming for this test. It's not going to help you unless it's pharmacology and you need to go over those drugs just one more time. I don't blame you on that one. Another good tip when taking the test: mark the ones you know and then go back and do the ones you don't know. And I know you've heard that, and it so works. That's how I passed my ham radio exam. You go through, immediately mark down all the ones you know right away, and then, you know, leave the ones blank you don't know. Go back, spend some more time thinking about them. Then go back, look at the whole thing again, and just double check yourself. Try not to change those initial answers, especially if you really feel like you knew it right at first, because if you second guess yourself, you're usually changing the answer to make it wrong, unless you're just absolutely convinced or you read the question wrong the first time. Don't change your answers. Make sure you celebrate afterwards. For me, that's like a burger and ice cream cone. For other people, you know, they're gonna go out drinking and dancing. That wasn't my thing, but just, you know, make sure when you're done, you do something fun. We were in California. Some of the girls went to the beach and just hung out, and some of the girls did, you know, shopping spree. I don't know, but like go and do something to get rid of that stress. You're done, it's over, like it's time to relax. Okay, so what do I remember from boards? Well, for starters, when I went downstairs and grabbed my Mosby's here, sand fell out of it because I studied for my boards on Waikiki Beach. I highly recommend that. So my classmate slash roommate decided that instead of studying our brains out before boards, we had a week off, and she said, hey, why don't we just go to Hawaii? She had an uncle there, we could stay at his house, we could use his car, we just needed money to get over there and money for food, and that was it. And I went, you know what? I am so burned out. I'm definitely not gonna study here if I stay here. I was really tired of studying the apartment. I was really tired of studying the library. I was really tired of studying on clinic. All the places that were my usual study areas, I didn't wanna see them anymore. I was so tired. So I said, you know what? I probably won't study if I stay here anyway. I might as well just not study on the beach. At least I'll come back relaxed and with a tan. So we did. We flew to Hawaii and we spent a week in Hawaii. And we studied our brains out. We got up early in the morning, we would have breakfast, we'd study for a few hours on the beach, we'd go have lunch, we'd go do a movie, or we'd do an activity, and then we'd spend the afternoon studying, we'd go do dinner, and then we'd come back and we'd study the evening. We studied 3 times a day. We made it through this entire thing in a week, and we just broke it up, and we talked to each other about the different questions and stuff, and we just worked our way through this monster sitting on the beach in our bikinis, and it was fabulous. So I highly recommend that. If you're burned out, and you're gonna be burned out, the best way to get studying for this is to do it in a spot you're not used to, someplace more relaxing. If you're disciplined, and she was probably more disciplined than I was, and that really helped. But we came back and we had, like I said, amazing tans. We were relaxed, and we had some of the best scores on that test from our class. We did really well. So we were very excited, and a nice tip, just go study on the beach. So those were some of my tips for studying for the Dental Hygiene National Boards. I hope that helped you out. I know it wasn't super detailed as far as like, study this, study that, but that's kind of what school's for. So if you're not already learning it in school and you don't know your style of study, you're in trouble. That's really all I can tell you. Like, I'm a super visual person, so I write it out and I look at it and I erase it and I write it again. And if I've written it a couple of times or circled it and memorized it, it's in my head. I don't have to worry about it. A lot of people aren't like that, but you do what works for you, and best of luck. You're gonna do amazing. And I do hope this helped, and I will see you guys next week. Be sure to like and subscribe, and take awesome care, and remember to keep flossing.